ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲਿਬਰਲਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਣ ਲਈ ਪੂਰੀ ਯੋਜਨਾ ਦਾ ਖੁਲਾਸਾ ਕੀਤਾ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ 2021 ਲਈ ਜਾਰੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਵੀਂ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ, ਕਿਫਾਇਤ ਤੇ ਸਨਮਾਨਤਾ ਵਰਗੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਵਾਅਦੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ। ਲਿਬਰਲ ਆਗੂ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ 82 ਪੰਨਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਦਸਤਾਵੇਜ਼ ਜਾਰੀ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਯੰਗ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਆਇਤਾਂ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ।
In the last 18 months, our country has faced the crisis of a century. It's been tough, tougher than anyone could have expected. But we've faced it together. In this election, you have a choice about what the next 18 months and the next 18 years look like. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because we have a plan to move forward for everyone. On health, on housing, on childcare, on climate. So here's what our plan looks like. Keeping you safe and healthy is job one. It has always been and always will be. That's why we'll make sure you can find a family doctor or a family health team. And while we're at it, we'll make a historic, dedicated investment in mental health care too. Because mental health is health, and it's time it was treated that way. That's our plan to move forward. And of course, it all starts with finishing the fight against COVID-19 for good. Over the last little while, you've probably seen the disturbing anger of anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers. You might have seen them marching downtown against local businesses that are following public health rules, or yelling at a grocery store clerk or a server at your local diner, or even threatening people at one of our rallies. It's your freedom I'm focused on. The freedom of the responsible majority of us who are fully vaccinated. The freedom of our children under 12 who can't yet get their shots. Because that's what's at stake. And I will always stand up for your right to be safe, to be in places that are free from COVID-19, your right to not be forced back into lockdown. So we'll stand firm on our commitment that federal public servants should be vaccinated.
ओंटारियो ਵਿੱਚ ਗੈਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਮਸ, ਇੰਡੋਰ ਰੈਸਟੋਰੈਂਟਸ, ਮੂਵੀ ਥੀਏਟਰ ਤੇ ਕੰਸਰਟ ਹਾਲਸ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਸਬੂਤ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਇਹ ਸਭ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਦੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਸਰਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਜੋ ਕਿ 22 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ओंटारियो ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਡਗ ਫੋਰਡ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ।
Now, like other provinces and countries around the world, we find ourselves responding to our greatest enemy yet, the Delta variant. Our cautious three-step plan to reopening Ontario was measured. It was a plan that responded to a virus that continues to evolve. We had some of the highest thresholds for loosening restrictions and maintained public health measures like indoor masking. This cautious approach allowed us to continue delivering record numbers of vaccines while fortifying hospital capacity and keeping COVID cases down. As a result, Ontario now has some of the lowest rates of COVID in Canada. This is thanks to all of you. We can and should be proud of the progress, but we can never be complacent. Despite this progress, like many other jurisdictions, we find ourselves facing a fourth wave of COVID-19 as we enter the fall months and people return indoors. So as we've done before, we will do whatever it takes to meet these new challenges head on. For the past 3 months, along with Canada's other premiers, I've called on the federal government to develop a national vaccine passport. We've seen this national leadership in countries around the world who have implemented their own national vaccine certificate programs. Because it's clear that a national system is far better than a patchwork of certificates across every single province and territory in the country, especially as more Canadians travel abroad. But Justin Trudeau has told us that they will not be rolling out a national vaccine passport while their election is ongoing. We can't wait any longer. We must take immediate action.
ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੇ ਇਲਾਜ ਲਈ ਜਾਂ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਣ ਲਈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਐਂਟੀਪੈਰਾਸਾਈਟਿਕ ਦਵਾਈ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪਸ਼ੂਆਂ ਲਈ ਕੰਮ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਆਈਵਰਮੈਕਟਿਨ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਉਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਅਲਰਟ ਜਾਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਜਿਹਾ ਨਾ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਸਲਾਹ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਿਆ ਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਕਾਰਗਰ ਦੱਸਿਆ।
I mean, I think they're coming in our future at some point. And you want to look to places like the United States and Israel in terms of what's the same about their vaccine campaign and what's different. Well, we largely did use mRNA vaccines, so that really does say, there is a waning effect. And we've seen that even in the long-term data from Pfizer and Moderna. But you also see that effect really in people that got the dose on time, so that 3 to 4 weeks after their first dose. And largely the people that were vaccinated first. So Israel showed that people that were vaccinated in January and February had a little bit higher risk of breakthrough infections as compared to people who were vaccinated more recently.
Right, but so let me jump in though, because when you talk about waning immunity, how urgent is that problem? Like, how much is protection actually waning over the course of several months?
Yeah, and this is where it gets really murky, right? We are seeing breakthrough infections amongst individuals that have gone to that January, February mark from vaccines. But we haven't necessarily seen a significant rise in severe disease, people who require hospitalization, people who need the ICU, and people who die from COVID-19 who have gotten vaccinated in that January, February piece. And so this is where the fields are a bit murky. The United States' suggestion is, well, there may be a waning of that initial immunity, the one that protects you from just getting infected. It's only a matter of time before you have loss of protection against that severe immunity. Yeah, and I think, again, prioritizing groups like those who are elderly, who have the most risk of having a dysfunctional immune response, those who have major immunocompromising conditions, similarly, who have the highest risk of having a blunted immune response, it makes sense. And we are starting to roll this across Canada. That general population piece, though, the investment of millions and millions of vaccines in Canada, United States, and Europe.
ਇੱਕ ਨਵੇਂ ਸਰਵੇਖਣ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਇਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਚੋਣ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਦੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਮੱਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਤੇ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਦਾ ਪੱਲੜਾ ਭਾਰੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਜਦਕਿ ਲਿਬਰਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਮਰਥਨ ਖੁੱਸਦਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਵੀ 4 ਅੰਕ ਵੱਧ ਹਾਸਲ ਕਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਉਸ ਦੇ 24% ਅੰਕ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹਨ।
Certainly throughout the pandemic, throughout the last 6 months, and a lot of that has been Jagmeet's performance, the performance of our caucus, really fighting to get people the help they needed through the pandemic. And I think, we're still in the first part of the campaign in the summer. We are seeing a lot of people still considering their choices, considering us. I think our universe of potential support is quite large, and I think what we will see in the coming weeks is people making up their mind. So I feel pretty good. Many races we're looking at are 3-way races. Many places we are very close, and I think we just have to keep working hard and bring it home in the next couple of weeks. We're known to make decisions that sometimes the rest of the country isn't expecting. And so I feel good. We've got great candidates there. Very excited to have Ruth-Hélène Brassard back running for us. And I know that Jagmeet's message is resonating with people in Quebec, talking about the need for homes that people can afford, talking about the need to make sure the wealthy and big corporations pay their share, and talking about the need to fight the climate crisis. Those are issues of concern to Quebec, and he's really connecting with Quebecers on those things to get things done for people. And in a time of the pandemic, when folks were really in need of help and wanted their government to get that help to them, we were there to fight for the help that Canadians needed. Lots of times in the parliament also, though, that we saw ideas we put forward, like pharmacare, like wealth tax on millionaires and billionaires, like taking profit out of long-term care to protect seniors. We put forward those ideas, and we watched Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole team up to defeat them. So, we did our best to get the help to people that people needed, and we'll do our best always to do that. So, but, Parliament works in many different ways. Sometimes, yes, we
ਤੂਫਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮਿਸੀਸਾਗਾ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਇਮਾਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਣੀ ਭਰਨ ਕਾਰਨ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਖਾਲੀ ਕਰਵਾਉਣਾ ਪਿਆ। 2111 ਰੋਚਕੋਟ ਤੋਂ 39 ਅਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ ਯੂਨਿਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਖਾਲੀ ਕਰਵਾ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਫਾਇਰ ਯੂਨਿਟ ਨੇ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਸਪਲਾਈ ਕੱਟ ਦਿੱਤੀ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਨੋਵਾ ਸਕੋਚੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਲਰਟ ਜਾਰੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਤਟਵਰਤੀ ਖੇਤਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਆ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਵੀ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਰੱਖੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
And if you start privatizing the waters of the arm, then you lose it. And if you squeeze the ocean, then you no longer have that vast, vast capacity that the ocean has to serve all these functions.
Review processes don't stop projects, they authorize their harmful effects.
To cope with this.
We are going to see more and more coastal flooding, storm surge, accelerated erosion, and saltwater intrusion of fresh groundwater. Our coastline and our marine environment are under attack from the impacts of climate change, and now is the time that we need to be protecting our coastal ecosystems, not destroying them.
When there are funds available, like last October, the federal government put forward a climate action fund. It was so hotly competed for by so many little parties that wanted to do things desperately that it crashed the system for application for 5 days and nobody could get their applications in. You know, we can tackle one challenge at a time, but if we don't save our citizens, those tax dollars will be doing disaster funds instead, and it's, I think, is it $1 of prevention and adaptation to $12 each disaster? So it's time to do it now.
The issues with infilling and reclamation is that it can make the coastline more vulnerable.
ਰੂਬੀ ਸਹੋਤਾ ਤੇ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲਿਜਾਣ ਲਈ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਲਾਨ ਦਾ ਖੁਲਾਸਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਨੌਰਥ ਤੋਂ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਰੂਬੀ ਸਹੋਤਾ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ 18 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਸੰਕਟ ਦਾ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਿਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਮਾਸਕ ਪਾਏ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਅਤ ਰੱਖਣ ਲਈ ਖੁਦ ਨੂੰ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੰਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਘਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਤੌਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ। ਹੁਣ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵਾਂਗ ਲੀਵ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਲਈ ਟੀਕਾਕਰਨ ਵੀ ਕਰਵਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ। ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਰਾਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਦ੍ਰਿੜ ਰਹੇ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਰੋਜ਼ਗਾਰ ਦੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਮੌਕੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰਨ, ਮੱਧ ਵਰਗ ਦਾ ਵਿਕਾਸ ਕਰਨ ਤੇ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਨਿਰਮਾਣ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲੈ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੀ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦਾ ਪਲਾਨ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਸਾਡੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਕੋਲ ਹੀ ਅਜਿਹੀ ਟੀਮ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਖਿਲਾਫ ਲੜਾਈ ਖਤਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵਾਂਗ ਰਹਿਣ ਲਈ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਥਾਂ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ।